Hey there, Stephanie Joy with all things Social Security and the law practice of Joy Disability. Here's a short little segment from our recent live stream Q&A that we have every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel, All Things Social Security. Enjoy, and if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I will be sure to get to them. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now. Hey, how are we doing today? People are just starting to pop in. I hope everyone's doing great. Hope you had a great week. It's only Wednesday, but half the week anyway. For most people anyway. Everything is good on this end. Busy, busy, busy as always. So Sybil says the SSA and the DHS need to integrate. I uploaded stuff. Is that your is that your state? I think you're talking about your state DDS. I'm looking at DHS. I'm like, Department of Homeland Security. So your state DDS, which is your state disability, whatever agency they throw it under, yours is DHS. I uploaded stuff that the DHS, I think you mean DDS, sent me to the SSA website. LOL, we got that part straightened out. Well, you can do that. Would make sense if the two systems were somehow interlinked. I'm not sure which part you're talking about. I think there's a lot of things they could be doing about connectivity and stuff. And I know that we can see in our clients' files whether some third party sent in a report. I believe you still can't, right? And it would be kind of nice if you guys could see the same thing we see. I don't know if I necessarily need my clients to all see it because gosh forbid they start like wanting me to explain everything in there for them because I'm not doing it. Do your own research, figure it out. That's not my job. And we're not going to take the time to do that. For pro se, so maybe it would be like, well, whoever's in charge of the case. If you're pro se, then you have access. If you're got a rep, then the rep. Maybe they would do it that way, or maybe they would say both. I don't know. But I do think as a pro se, it would really be invaluable. And it's not like the DDS has to return your call if you ask stupid questions or anything. You know what I mean? Like if you say, I'm just looking at online and I'm trying to figure out which one is a third party. I'm not sure. Is it this one? Blah, blah, blah. Like, do you think they should be calling you back to tell you that? Obviously not. They're not there to educate you. They're there to adjudicate your case. And I know you're not saying that they are, Sybil, but just throwing it out there for other people. Sybil Chick says, fusions fix you. Well, that's good. Talking about back fusions, right? Virginia says, aw, girl, that's very sweet. You're very, very kind. I'm telling you, filters and makeup. I don't wear too much makeup on my skin, but filters help, without a doubt. I think without them, it would be so distracting. It would just be like, I can't be talking to people who are getting the gag reflex, you know? It just wouldn't be right. So, rocking chair warrior. Hi, rocking. Another 58-year-old. We are just all like this big sister brotherhood going on today. We were all womb mates once upon a time in different wombs. So that would be like housemates, right? I'm 58. I heard there are 2 different CRs. I have only seen the short form. Is there a specific reason? What do you mean by CR? Do you mean CDR? I think you mean CDR. Yeah, the short form means that you are probably not expected to improve enough to go back to work. So that's good for your sanity. Then there's the long form, which is pretty much like the entire 3368, you know, that you did when you started, when you applied, and probably function reports going to get tossed in there and all that. So, yep. So one has to do with medical improvement expected, but you have a chance to show it didn't. And one of them is medical improvement not expected. Mine, MINE, and that's probably you, rocking. So they took a recognition that maybe your kind of impairments are not the ones that will re-heal themselves, etc. They'll still check to see and ask you so you can come clean if it did, but they're not going to. They believe it's not going to happen. You're in a pretty good place as long as you don't blow it. Dolphin. RD, I'm confused about DLI. How many years do you have SSDI after you stop working? Okay, excellent. And there's not like a straight answer, but let me explain why. So if you stop working entirely, you're not earning any more credits, or you're working so little that you can't even earn 1 credit. The maximum you're ever going to have is 5 calendar years after you stop working. That's the maximum, but it could be less because remember, you have to have 20 earnings credits in the last 40. You could stop working and you just started it. Maybe you worked for the last, 6 months or something, and you hadn't worked in 4 years. You have those prior 5 years well stuffed with work, so you are still insured because those 5 years are still within the 10-year window. And then you got 2 more, so you have presumably 22 credits. You stop working. The oldest 2 are going to scroll off in 6 months. It's quarterly, remember? It's quarterly credits. So this is generally how it would work. I'm trying to think if there's exceptions, but this looks like a pretty much a a picture that could readily happen and does. So now in 6 months, you're still insured, but it ends the end of that quarter. And now you're not insured anymore. So you could still prove that you were not insured, I'm sorry, that you were disabled during the last 6 months. And if the work you did do recently did not last 6 months, let's say it lasted 5, you've been off work for years for growing problems, and you tried to go back and do work, that would arguably not even be SGA. Like you could get it argued as a failed work attempt, but that doesn't change your DLI. Your DLI, you bought those extra 6 months because of that work, which you can get from part-time work too. That's under SGA. Highly recommended. Your old ones are scrolling off. Now, let's say it wasn't that scenario. So in that case, you have a very short window of DLI, right? It's not going to be the 5 years. The 5 years is if your most recent 5 years of the 10 years are the ones that are packed. You got 4 credits for every year. You worked at least $10,000 a year for those last 5 years. You're going to have those 20 as I'm like doing it on the side, but like they're here current. Here's which way am I going? 10 years ago here, these start scrolling this way as time goes on, right? And so they're going to, in 5 years, the one from 5 years ago will now be 10 years out. And then it's going to scroll off the board. So your best bet is their most recent, filing. I like to, ideally, like maybe not the day you stop. There's a lot of reasons why we often recommend, depending on the impairment, that don't do it right away. Let's get the evidence solid that you didn't get before. Because you got the 12-month durational thing too. You don't have to wait 12 months, but it will come into play and potentially deny you, which we see all the time. So sometimes will be like, why don't you wait 6 months? Focus on the 6 months of bolstering that medical evidence that you couldn't do because you were working full time. Make it your new full-time, although it's part-time job, is getting those visits and going, and getting the whole next foreseeable future speckled with medical, and then file. And that's that's probably a good scenario. And the person still has like 4 years of insured status. And if they want that DLI to never go away, Dolphin, they're going to want to somehow earn several thousand. It's under 10. In fact, it's under 9 this year, a year, or at least credits that kind of keeps you in but not extended. But if they had the 4 credits every year doing some genteel self-employment accommodated work, this is when accommodated work is really good. Under SGA, accommodated split shifts, or I should say split days, like every other day, 3 hours a day, short shifts, and they could still earn money. It's not contrary to their disability. Continue to treat robustly because they're only working part-time to prove why they can't work more. And they will be earning those credits, and it'll always keep them. They could be fighting a case after case after case, and then eventually they'll win. This is really important for younger people under 50. I have people in their 30s, and it's. I always said, listen, you don't know where it's going to go. Difficulty of proving a case like yours under the rules for your vocational profile. So if you have a hobby that you can turn into a low-end moneymaker thing that you're not doing all the time, it could be house sitting. It could be dog sitting, cat sitting. You're not making a lot of money, but you don't need to make a lot. I mean, if you make $700 a month on average, you'll be making, and it's less than $200 a week right now, you'll be earning all those credits. Just to make sure you pay the taxes on all that. Don't try to write it off like, got a home office and the mileage and all that. So don't be too tax stingy, because you need to pay Social Security taxes on that part to get the credits for it. I think it's just great for people when they can't work full time and they're going through so much. It's such an emotional thing. It helps so many people anyway. They're bringing more money to their households. They meet people a lot of time and make friends. So it's a mental boost usually. Jen says, because my SGA all pre-19 was based on, and I assume even your even short-term SGA, like you didn't have any months that were SGA after 2019, was based on flexibility, last-minute gigs that didn't work, like a 9 to 5. That's okay. Doesn't matter. It's still SGA. And didn't incorporate one of the biggest factors of being considered disabled. Well, I think I get to your point, Jen. I think this is what you're saying. Because that work, well, depending on when you filed and stuff, is whether you had to do a work history report on that stuff. But your medical records should already tell the story of how you worked. I mean, your medical records existed at that time while you're doing all that Wonder Woman stuff, but with doing your workarounds to make it work for you despite your disabilities. So I get what you're saying. It's not a job that would exist in substantial numbers in the economy. You kind of created it, did a workaround. There's one of them.
You did it, right? I totally get that. That would probably be something that you would be and that is your relevant time period. You're proving disability then. So I would think those jobs are in your, right? I'm trying to remember some of the facts. You're trying to prove that you were disabled back then, even when you, whatever the end of your SGA was, right? So you could, that would be in your work history. You would say, back then with certain accommodations, I was still able to muster that up. Now, even with those accommodations, I couldn't do it. I've gotten weaker in whatever sense, or, you know, the impairments have gotten worse, and those accommodations would not work for me now. Because remember, you have to prove you were accommodated or did workarounds. It's how you did the job is what you have to prove you can't do if it's in your past relevant work period. But if you, so you're saying, but my medical situation is so much worse. I could do that 8 years ago. I can't do that now, even with all that, or else I would be. Who doesn't like to do what they can, you know, making their own accommodations, right? But I think I get your point, and I think that would be something that you would with those jobs. It's almost like the kind of thing accommodations hurt you with the past work, but here you're trying to use them to help show. And only because you now have proof that even those accommodations wouldn't work for you today. I think did that kind of address that a little better, Jen? Jen says it's confusing because it really should be open shut case. I have 13 urgent mental health stays, long-term treatment stays, months, ER visits. Well, fingers crossed for you. You said it was this week, right? I'm going to pray for you, Jen. I definitely am. Got a letter today. Did they cross in the mail? Got a letter today. Yeah, you got a letter. You know what? Again, how did you mail it? Do you have a receipt? Did you mail it? Did the third party mail it? I mean, those are important questions. So the letter civil check, I assume, says we haven't received that third party. Who sent it? Send it again. You can always send a copy. When in doubt, resend that bad boy. And consider sending it by fax. So you've got the confirmation right in hand. Make sure you follow the rules. There's a barcode. The cover letter to the third party had a fax number mentioned in it for that person to fax it to. The first page of the third party, the one where the person puts their information, also has a barcode. So when you fax it that number, that scans it right into your folder, even though it's probably out in London, Kentucky, which is one of the places they would send it to. So does that help? Send it again. When in doubt, and then too bad, so sad, adjudicator. I didn't hear back from you, so I'm resending it. And now you got your receipt. And by the way, you're not going to win or lose. Well, you're not going to win because of the third party. You could feasibly hurt your case with the third party. So they want it. But it's not the end of the world if they don't get it from your standpoint, because all your stuff really does depend on your medical. Cecil says, thank you. They would have to have a chaperone. This is the driver that has the permit or might be getting the permit. I mean, by law, they have to have a chaperone when they're in the permit stage. But you're saying even after, if they were to get their driver's license, they couldn't drive alone. And they would be driving the back road to grocery stores and doctors. They're in their 30s. I believe the benefits is disabled adult child. I understand. Yeah, it's very hard with the DAC. I hope you have all those old records going back 15 years or whatever. And the IEPs, I'm sure you have all that stuff, right, Cecil? Getting all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, it could be one. DAC is going to be hard. I mean, this isn't going to have any bearing on the DAC parts. It's only about the current disability. If a person was on SSI due to their disability as an adult, because there was no DAC availability, because there was no parent record to go on at that time, that SSI, we've seen this, we've heard from people here that said, no, and they denied my DAC, even though I've been on SSI the whole time, which I was like, and I know I keep meaning to try to dig into that further. It's mind-blowing to me. It is so contrary to common sense, math, everything reasonable and logical, and this person got screwed. It was someone who was visiting here. I forget who it was, but it was a few weeks ago in one of the live streams. And I was just like, brother, that is so wrong. It was JC, maybe. There was a couple JCs, though. Jenny says, I go 5 times on breaks. I understand. So you just bring your phone. Sybil says, stretching our back. Yeah, maybe taking a little stroll. Cecil says, if there is a review, what all would that require to prove they are still disabled? A review of what? You're saying someone's fighting for DAC. You didn't say, what would you review? They haven't won their DAC yet, right? Is that you, Cecil? All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Be safe.